newspapers that were passed out this morning. All right, one kid did have what looked like a girly book. And whether they're right or wrong about press coverage, there were a lot more reporters and cameras there today.
And I think the people in China are all supporting the students here.
You meet people at these demonstrations. We met Xiao Li, third-year international relations student. His parents and grandparents live in America. He chose to live here.
Well, I think I should stay here because I'm a Chinese. I love China.
Coming here was not without risk.
Many students are threatened that if they come to the Bund to go on hunger strike, and then they won't have good job after graduation. I think what they want is very reasonable, and what they are thinking is just what I am thinking. So I think it's up to me to come here.
He says, I admire Gandhi in India for his nonviolence movement, and I think what we can do here is just go on a hunger strike.
Because, you know, we won for quite a long time. From the main force movement in 1919 to 1989, we have waited for almost 70 years. We just want science. We want democracy. We want freedom.
They do not all want elections now. They want the government and the party to speak to them and their concerns.
Not to overthrow the government, but to make the government pay attention?
Yes, because I don't think that there's another party or political group.
How serious are they? The young man being talked to is Sun Jiangyu from the Shanghai Electric Power Institute. The older people are from his school. They're trying to talk him into quitting the hunger strike and going back to school. He said no. They offered him what looked like vitamins and water. He said no. Sun did have to leave later, though. The medics said so, and they're medical students, not authority figures from the adult world. Sun argued with them, too, but he lost. When he left, the crowd applauded him.
Themselves, and this is a big change. Perhaps not because the party has made them all into a jail, put them in a jail, but they psychologically, in many ways, have put themselves into a jail. They have felt they have to look to somebody to speak for them. And I think they have found out today they can speak very well for themselves. Also, the second point is there's an old Chinese traditional saying that says one Chinese can carry a pail of water, two Chinese can only carry a half bucket of water, and three Chinese can't carry a drop of water. And what we're seeing today are strangers working together, caring for one another, and doing something together without having been told by somebody else to do it.
Betty Bell Lord, thank you very much. Now, when we come back, we'll be looking at a lot of things, including the latest from the square. But before we do that, let's note that there's been a kind of stunned silence from Washington during this week.
Streets of their capital city demanding democratic reform. Student leaders say they're optimistic about reaching an agreement with the government in the near future. And record export sales.
A man who leads the country at age 84 is making his move to crush the rebellion, the core of which is right back there in the dark with the student hunger strikers. These developments just in the last few minutes. Deng's right-hand man, Li Peng, has on these speakers made an address to the nation in which he's declared a kind of martial law for the city of Beijing, not for the country as a whole. He's declared this square a disorder area. He has said that he and the government and the Communist Party will not allow the hunger strike to continue. He says students have a right to protest if they like, but workers and professionals do not. Elements of the Red Army are within several miles of here. Scenes such as this have been happening over the last hour and a half. Supporters of the rebels have sort of encircled some of the Army units, but the Army is taking its time. They have all night. The move is underway. The rebellion is being crushed. Dan Rather, CBS News, Beijing.
The protesters sang patriotic songs and chanted slogans for freedom and democracy. The People's Army is for the people, they cried. You are one of us. Some of the demonstrators offered the soldiers water, but it was refused. The commanding officer was outnumbered and surrounded. There was nothing in military doctrine for a situation like this. So his men sat and waited for further orders. It was a tactical victory for the demonstrators, not over the soldiers, but the government that ordered them to move in.
I think crackdown is political suicide for the government.
At another point, northeast of the square, a human chain blocked the way of another army convoy. Here, too, it was a standoff. A bus blocked the route on a third street leading to the square as barricades began to appear on the major roads. This woman begged a soldier to consider the hunger-striking students. They've been fasting there for 7 days, she said. You should not harm them. We are all Chinese. At least one of the soldiers was sympathetic, saying, the student movement is positive. As the hours passed, the soldiers became more relaxed. There were discussions. Some soldiers said they were only told their unit was going to Beijing for military exercises. Some of them started to settle in for what remained of the night. It is early morning here in the square, and the thousands of people who are gathered, thousands of people poured into the square to continue the protest. One of the student leaders said the hunger strike would now continue, blaming Li Peng and the government. Many of
all demonstrations would be banned as
the medical station in the square was becoming critical. The conditions of some students was causing serious concern among the medical staff. And as the mass hunger strike and demonstrations of support went into their 8th day, both sides in the conflict were escalating their action. John Lawrence, ABC News, Tiananmen Square, Beijing.
They're clearly angry that the students had upset the Gorbachev visit. Gorbachev left China yesterday. Today, the threat that the crackdown was coming. ABC's Todd Carroll is in Beijing.
China's people saw government policy change before their eyes on television today. On the news at noon, the official most sympathetic to the students, Communist Party leader Zhao Ziyang, made an emotional appeal to those at Tiananmen Square to go home. At the end of his talk, viewers nationwide could see students seeking his autograph. On the evening news, the tone was harsher, with Premier Li Peng warning the hunger strikers and their supporters to go home. The television news, which had carried remarkably candid reports on the demonstrations, was reverting to the party line. Later, in a special broadcast after midnight, Li Peng delivered an angry speech, blaming the protests on a small group of conspirators and calling for a restoration of order. He said the Communist Party runs this country and its leadership must be protected. China then heard from Yang Shangkun, its ceremonial president and military leader, who declared the capital was in a state of anarchy. And
he's an English major. Mr. Zhang, we've been listening to the communist leaders today saying they want an end to this demonstration. Can they stop it?
No, I'm afraid they can't stop this. If they don't accept the demands raised by the students will go on indefinitely until the government accepts the demands.
Do you believe that the army will come to Tiananmen Square?
Yes, I think so, because this time it seems to me that the government has made up its mind to crack down the demonstration.
If the army comes, I beg your pardon, if the army comes, will you fight them?